Okay, so we have met and agreed that we will not destroy the group. Nobody new is leaving. Some people are kind of on hiatus because they don't want to stick around and talk about any more about the pandemic or the politics of COVID. But we have at least decided that we're going to be civil with each other. And so the group is, at this point, it seems to me, reasonably stable, except there are certain things that we need to be able to talk about that we don't have a mechanism for talking about, as long as our primary mode of connecting with each other, the kind of rules of engagement, are that we use the circle method. Circle is something we've been using for years now. It's working really well. It gives everybody a chance to speak. It's particularly good for something when we're meeting virtually. So we're definitely going to keep that as our dominant mode. But it doesn't really allow us to get into connection individually with each other in the context of the group. So what ends up happening is that people have a conversation outside of the group, which is okay, except that then the group doesn't get the benefit of that conversation. So we want to set up another structure that is sort of within the circle structure that allows us to engage in a process of self-reflection. Any human community is a complex adaptive system. Living with intention is certainly an example of that. Complex adaptive systems are ones complex insofar as they have multiple interdependent variables. All these different things are impacting each other. And are adaptive insofar as they're self-organizing systems. What happens within the system arises as an emergent property of the system. As long as all we have to use as a process for our feedback to each other is what happens within the circle method, that limits us to some degree. So I want to suggest to you an added layer of conversation that we'll call a feedback structure. We have the circle structure. This is a feedback structure that allows us one-on-one in the context of the group to give feedback about what somebody else has said or done within the group. So the basic idea is that if you have some feedback that you want to give someone, specific feedback about a specific event to a specific person, when in the circle you have the talking piece, you can say, hey, I want to give some feedback to Mike about this thing that happened. Right? Now, at that point, Mike can say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear this. So if you are the invited recipient, the receiver of this feedback, you can say no. You can say, I don't want to do that. And we will respect that. Right? If Mike says, yes, I want to receive this, and Joyce says, here's what I want to say, then Mike and Joyce have a conversation in which Joyce, as the giver, is saying, Mike, when this happened, when you did this, under this circumstance, here's the way it impacted me. So the giver of the feedback is not talking about what the other did. Joyce is not talking about what Mike did. Joyce is talking about Joyce's experience of what happened when Mike did whatever Mike did. Now, Mike may say, well, that's not what I did. And can clarify that. But this is a conversation in which the giver of the feedback gives it to the receiver in the midst of the group. Now, there's some more kind of details about this that I put in the text here, so you could read through that too. But the other layer of this is something that's happening within the group. And so once the feedback has been given and received, then if you, as a member of the group, having witnessed this, say, I want to reflect on that. When you get the talking piece, you can say, okay, here's what that was like for me. With the understanding that at least initially, what we want to do is talk about what happened in the exchange between Mike and Joyce, not what happened 3 weeks ago or something else outside of that. We want to keep this as specific as possible. And I really want us, at least initially, to be fairly rigid about this, because until we get familiar with it, it's going to feel awkward, might feel clunky, may not even feel safe. So we want to be sure that we do this in a responsible way. Now, if you say, Mark, that's bullshit, then give me feedback. Okay, let's use this as a way of processing our own self-reflections. So I'm excited to see how this works. And if it doesn't work, I'm excited to learn about why it doesn't work. And I hope to see you Sunday evening. Take care.